Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPad Pro 10.5-inch model and see if this particular iPad is still worth buying in 2024. Now, the first thing I would definitely tell you is that I do think for some people out there, these iPads may be worth buying for some people out there. But for the average everyday person, I really don't see a reason why you would want to go ahead and buy this particular iPad anymore when you could buy even an iPad Pro 3rd generation, which would probably be a better iPad over this thing. So we'll talk about that throughout this whole entire video. But if you want to buy some iPads that I would recommend buying this year though, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the same exact time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPad Pro 10.5-inch model, you basically were getting a 10.5-inch display inside of this particular iPad. So it's a 10.5-inch, Retina display. This was one of the first iPads Apple made and one of the first Apple products Apple made with ProMotion. Now, what ProMotion was at the time was a 120 Hz display, and this was the first time we were basically getting it inside of this particular, iPad, which was crazy. And this iPad came out in 2019 or something. The fact that we were getting, no, not even then, it was 2017. So it was a long time ago. And the fact that we were getting this type of capability on this iPad at that moment was super crazy at that time. So I would definitely tell you the display on this thing shocked me, and I was very happy that we were getting this type of display that looked this good on this particular iPad at that moment. Now, on top of that, you're getting True Tone as well and an anti-reflective coating inside of this iPad as well, which was another really cool thing going on here. Now, on the back side, you were also getting pretty thick bezels on this particular iPad as well. So you're getting the top bezel and the bottom bezel. And in this particular case, you're getting Touch ID here too, which is another really cool thing. You were getting kind of not really flat sides, but you were getting an overall decent looking iPad. It didn't really look that bad. On the bottom, you're getting a lightning port and you're getting a headphone jack as well, which is another really cool thing, just having lightning like that and a headphone jack. Now, clearly now USB-C is way better, but still lightning was good at the time. On the back side, you were getting a single camera in the top left corner, so you can go ahead and basically boot up this camera as you normally would and kind of use it on an everyday basis. You were having that Apple logo right in the center, which was very nice. And that was kind of it on the exterior. Now, this thing did support Apple Pencil 1, which was great. You can go and plug in an Apple Pencil inside of this thing and, kind of use it there. But you were also getting this iPad in a couple of different colors. You can get it in space gray, you can get it in silver, you can get it in gold, and you can get it in rose gold. And this was a really good looking iPad at that time. And this was one of those devices that I looked at that moment. And I was very happy with the way Apple was kind of approaching their iPad Pro lineup, because by having this 10.5-inch model, they were kind of signifying and unifying the biggest, size and the, smallest size, and kind of making us, inline mid-tier, size display. That was actually very nice, and I actually like the way they were kind of reducing the bezel on this thing too. And overall, it was a really good looking, beautiful looking iPad at that moment. Now, another thing is the price tag of this particular iPad. So we all know this now. This iPad, when it first came out, was expensive. iPad Pros are typically some of their most expensive iPads they make. It is actually their most expensive iPads they make. But the craziest thing was that when this iPad came out, obviously expensive, now these things are not as expensive as they used to be. And although, like I said before, the display of these things aren't really, the display is fine, but because this thing capability-wise isn't the greatest anymore, there's probably a reason why it would make more sense to go and buy something like the current generation iPad Pros or an iPad Pro 3rd generation than this thing, even if they're slightly more expensive. So for my personal opinion, I look at these particular iPads from a price tag standpoint. I'm still happy about it, but I do think, again, Apple could have done maybe a little bit of a better job, or I feel like these things haven't aged the best compared to the iPad Pro 3rd generation, but still it's a very good looking iPad nonetheless. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now from the camera side of things, this iPad was actually giving you a decent type of camera inside of it. So you were getting a 12 megapixel wide angle camera on the back and a 7 megapixel FaceTime HD camera. Now that basically means 1080p on the front and 4K video on the back. And here's the thing I will tell you, you're definitely actually getting a pretty decent performing camera inside of this thing, which is actually not that terrible. Having this type of camera inside of this particular iPad is actually very impressive when you're getting a device like this, because back when this iPad came out, this was supposed to be this was supposed to be the best of the best at that time, and it was actually giving you a decent camera inside of an iPad. So the thing you have to remember is that with this particular device, the camera quality is almost matching in line with something like an iPhone XR, kind of in a way. So if you're wanting something like an iPhone XR, let's just say if you have an iPhone that is a better camera than the iPhone XR, you're basically going to be getting a better camera inside of your iPhone than this one. So I don't think the average person would be using this type of camera anymore. I don't think most people would care about it anymore either. But with something like the iPhone XR, you're definitely going to be getting an overall better camera inside of something like, an iPhone XR or above than the iPad Pro 10.5 inch. So keep that in mind. Not the biggest deal in the world, but again, just one of those small things to kind of keep in mind there. In terms of software support, this is another somewhat complicated thing. So as you may know, this iPad really isn't supported with software anymore. It did get software support for quite a few years, but I don't know if you're going to be buying an iPad like an iPad Pro 10.5 inch and wanting to use it on an everyday basis if it's no longer getting software support. And that's kind of what ends up happening when some of these older iPads end up, getting drop support, because you end up buying them and you don't realize hey, this thing isn't really going to be getting that next generation of software. So really, what's the point of buying it? And in my personal opinion, I kind of feel the same way. And with these particular iPads, what I'll probably tell you is that there's a lot of things to love about these iPads. There's a lot of things to like, but with the software experience, this is the one area where I'd look at and probably be a little bit, not sad, but I'd be a little bit more concerned about buying, mostly from a software perspective, because I wouldn't want you to buy an iPad that is no longer getting software support. And that is kind of essentially what's happening in this particular case. So for my personal opinion, this in and of itself is another very, very important thing to keep in mind, because if you're wanting to go ahead and buy an iPad that's still supported with software, why buy this one? That's kind of how I feel about this. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, from the other side, from an actual performance perspective, you're getting the Apple A10X Fusion chip inside of it, which actually isn't even that bad. It kind of stemmed off of something like the iPhone 7. So that was something to kind of keep in mind. It's not going to be that great of a performing camera or performing iPad. But the fact that this thing was giving you that type of capability at that moment, it's actually not terrible. And I do give Apple a lot of credit, once again, for making these types of devices. And I do think if you're going to go and buy a phone like this, you are getting a decent performing iPad for how old it is. Now, for the everyday person, I would definitely 100% not recommend buying an iPad like this anymore. And like I said, the reason for that is because these things just aren't really, they're not going to have they're not going to have too much longevity ahead of it. And that is kind of the problem, once again, like I mentioned, if you're buying these types of iPads. So beyond that though, for basic things you can probably do for, still get a really good experience from it. And I really appreciate the fact that these things are basically giving you, the 120 Hz ProMotion display. I really, really like that. It is by far one of my most favorite things going on for this particular iPad. If I'm going to go through and buy an iPad, it is a very, very cool thing going on here. So personally for me, this is another area where it kind of gets a thumbs up for how old this iPad is. And to be honest, to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I do think there is a lot of stuff and a lot of capability still behind these particular iPads. But I don't think they're worth buying because of the software. If these things were still supported with software, then I'd say go for it. But if you want to go and buy it and keep it for another year, then maybe okay. Or if there's a harder reason why you need it. But for the average everyday person, I probably would not recommend buying these iPads anymore, because they're pretty much done getting software support, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to buy it, in my personal opinion. So from that perspective, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.